to Tech Type Podcasts, episode 4. My name's Simeon.
Hey, it's Ben.
I'm Dale. Have you guys heard about the newest kid in America?
The newest addition to the Musk family.
The newest. How is it spelled? X.
Oh, I think it's X, and then it's the AE, which is Ash, I believe.
Latin, yeah, Ash.
Yeah, and then is it
Ash
A-12? Do you guys know what it means?
So there is an explanation floating around somewhere on the internet.
Yeah, I think on his podcast, so he did a podcast with Joe Rogan recently, and he tries to explain it on that. But I'm pretty sure Grimesy, his missus, has come out and said it's something else. But anyway, he said on that X is the unknown variable, and then AE thing is Ash, which is I think it means AI, and then the A12 is his contribution apparently, and Grimesy came up with the rest, which, you know, great with baby names. But anyway, and I think that's his favourite plane, which is
so it's a precursor to the SR-71.
Yeah,
CIA, like spy plane.
The A12 spy plane.
God,
I wish I was named after a spy plane.
He's a bit of fun, that Muskie, isn't he?
Well, with Californian law, they can't actually. His birth certificate actually can't say that, so it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, yep.
Okay.
There's been a few spokespeople come out and say, yeah, he can't actually name his kid that.
Yeah, but maybe his kid identifies as Kyle.
Well, that's the other one. Is they're allowing him to pick his own gender, the baby. So it's male sex, but they've come out and said, you know, you can pick your own gender at what I presume is a decided age. You can pick that, or just maybe pick it at random times and change it as he pleases. But apart from that, you know, he's been doing a bit of other stuff apart from baby making.
he seems to be freaking out a little bit.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
He seems a little bit upset that his factories can't open.
Mm-hmm.
What in California, their lockdown rules are very, very strict, at least compared to the rest of the country in the US, and they cannot reopen their factory to begin production again. And now he's promised to move to Texas so that he can build his cars.
I think he's most frustrated that some of his suppliers are able to stay open without any problems at all, but the local government still shut down his factory. So I think he's struggling to understand why.
Also, his gigafactory in China's been not producing cars for a little during this period as well, hasn't it? Not just his one in...
Well, this is what he was discussing on Joe Rogan's podcast. Like, he's kind of gone against what everyone else has been saying, and that, you know, the coronavirus isn't as bad as what it seems over in America, and that some of the numbers were falsified, but for good reason, kind of, and that some of his suppliers and even China still weren't having a problem.
I think he's a big grey area. He definitely is having, like you say, Dad, a bit of trouble because he's selling all his possessions, which is, you know, a bit of an interesting move for him. I mean, I guess, you know, he could always buy them back again, having some money. But, you know, he's been selling a few of his houses off, as well as, you know, some of his worldly possessions. And he said that he's not going to be selling anything sentimental to him, so to speak. I don't know what that means or what that entails, but, you know. Someone like him who works so many hours, like how many hours did he say he was working? Like, I think he says about 100 a week, like give or take.
At his max, you know, anywhere between 80 and 100 hours a week. When does he have time to go to all these houses?
I don't think he does. I think this is the problem.
Exactly. So he's like, it's just an avenue for people to criticize him.
Mm. Yeah.
And he's never there anyway. So, I mean, what's the point of having the houses?
Do you think in general billionaires are criticised for being billionaires?
I'd say generally, yeah. I'd say they'd have a fair bit of hate towards them.
I feel like it's a pretty complex issue. You have these billionaires who, you know, some people might say that they rightfully should be rich, which I agree with. They've made these enormous companies that are doing a lot. Like Tesla's crazy. They're doing so much. They've got all the, like, they're the biggest push for, one of the biggest pushing companies for electric vehicles. They're developing stuff like space travel. It's nuts. They're doing so much, but the argument is that everyone else just isn't getting enough of a slice, which I think is fair too. But
yes, you almost think that
I don't think it's the responsibility of the CEO to, stop themselves from earning money. I think it should probably be on the government to tax them more if they are honestly making too much. But I don't think anyone would say no to a pay rise every now and then.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely not gonna say no. I mean, there was always those stories about when Steve Jobs came back to Apple, that he only paid himself $1 a year. I mean, he died very wealthy from multiple things, but partly Apple stocks as well as other company stocks. But it's kind of interesting that he took the approach of, I'm doing this because I love it more than the money. And I wonder if some of these other billionaires, and especially in tech, would be doing it if they weren't getting as much money as they were. I
mean, the thing about money is that once you get to that point, once you have like $1 billion, your money makes all your money for yourself. If you're making 1% interest on your money, you're making that'd be 10 million off of $1 billion in interest. You just don't need a salary at that point. It's superficial, it's a drop in the water. Like someone like Jeff Bezos could literally never work, and no one in his family could work for another 5 generations, and they'll still have money in the bank to do stuff.
Yeah, so
that sort of wealth
what is he worth these days? About 130 billion.
He's still by far the richest person in the world.
Depending on what the stock's doing,
Or I guess that depends on how liquid his worth is, but he's got a lot of money. He's got a lot. And
sort of, talking about Elon Musk's, his 100-hour week, crazy work and productivity, do you think he's stretching himself too thin? Do you think he's giving enough time to say the boring company, Ben, or is he he's workaholic?
I think he just didn't. I'd say he probably enjoys it too much. He's too dedicated to it now. I think he's come out and he said that the boring company takes up 5% of his time. The majority of his time is spent at SpaceX and Tesla. That's where he's dedicated, a good chunk of his life to. But he's always got his little side projects. They were talking a lot about Neuralink in Joe Rogan's podcast.
So what is Neuralink?
So the way Neuralink works, it's a little chip about 1 inch long. And you would have seen it in a fair few sci-fi movies, something similar. It's this little chip that gets inserted into the top of your skull and actually replaces some of your bone in your skull. And then there's just some little, it just attaches to your brain with some little nodes, and it just reads your brain signals.
What is it that this can achieve? What can it solve, I guess? What's its purpose?
So the ultimate purpose is to have a better bandwidth between humans and technology, because at the moment that's limited to pretty much how fast you can read and how fast you can type. But in between the two phases between, that utopian link and what we have at the moment, you've got things like curing Alzheimer's, improving your eyesight. If you're paraplegic or quadriplegic, bringing back some motion back into your limbs.
And this can all be sort of helped out, solved with this Neuralink.
Yeah, yep.
Sort of device. Do you think it's something? Think it's possible?
Oh.
Is it? I know he's sort of come out and said, possibly 1 year until we have some test people, and then possibly even between 5 and 10 years, which is a ridiculously short amount of time. Although he wants to get to Mars by 2024, so he's a very ambitious man. But do you think it is possible for him to achieve these massive goals? And I guess not just with Neuralink, but SpaceX is the main one, but these massive goals he's set for not only himself, but I guess just the whole human race. Is that even achievable for him?
I think without a doubt it's achievable. Within the timeline that he's set. Look, with Neuralink, it all comes down to things like the FDA approval. Anything involving that type of operation, human trials, that's going to take a long time to get through all the laws. I think it's definitely possible, but will the legislation, same as autonomous driving, will the legislation be able to keep up with the evolving technology?
So wait, what the chip does is it just meant to read like your brain waves and instantly interpret that? Is that the goal?
Yes and no. So it reads like different parts of your brain, and I don't know how they're determining it, but however, they use some fancy algorithm, machine learning. It can determine what you're thinking, and like how your brain works, and they can pretty much cure. Well, apparently they can pretty much cure any of the any diseases which are brain linked.
Yeah, so that's things like epilepsy and quadriplegic, paraplegic, things. And he's talked about that we've already actually got some of these implanted chips in our brain already. Not Neuralink necessarily, but for
that's 5G, mate.
Yeah, for sort of solving some of these problems.
Not again.
That we've got some of these.
Let's just clear up
already.
That theory is just insane, right?
Which series is this?
5G. They're planting microchips in your brain, and the government's trying to control you because it's COVID-19.
And that's what they're doing in the hospitals, eh?
Apparently, all these stories about in the UK there was all these people harassing the network guys setting up these 5G towers. Because they're walking out, stop, poison.
It's all propaganda. So you're quite a big fan of Elon Musk, Ben. Why Elon Musk? What's the draw about him that makes him so much better when the media criticizes him? He comes out and posts ridiculous things on Twitter. And why do you still believe him? Why do you follow him?
For me, he just turned everything upside down. You had these two massive industries that were so stale for so long. The automotive industry and the space industry, they were just dominated by these massive monopolies and they had all the control. And this one guy who kind of dabbled in that sort of area before came along with pretty much nothing and just tore down the rule book. I think, that's a massive achievement. And for him to do that in such a short period, I think SpaceX just turned 18 years old the other day, and they're about to launch American astronauts for the first time in 9 years You know, they're going up against these massive other companies like Boeing.
And so there's always these arguments about, you know, should private companies be able to, you know, do these space explorations, or should that be left to the countries, you know? What's your
NASA
what's your opinion on that?
It's nothing new. NASA didn't build a lot of the hardware for the Apollo program. That was all private companies still. Okay, sure, they built them for NASA, but NASA doesn't build everything in-house. They have a massive supply chain that they go through. And it's the same. It's not really that much different. You know, it's SpaceX. They're not SpaceX astronauts. They're still NASA astronauts that are getting launched.
At the moment.
At the moment, yes.
I guess is the sort of other side of that coin.
But this is what NASA has wanted for so long. NASA's there to go out and do all the missions that aren't going to make any money. No private companies want to go out and land on an asteroid. No private company's going to want to send a spacecraft outside of our solar system just to see what's out there.
Yeah.
NASA's set up to do all the hard engineering and then pass it off onto a private company.
Yeah. And so is there, you know, I don't know if you're a big fan of Elon's or not, Dale, but is there sort of other people in, especially in the tech community, I guess, is there any other ones, you know, like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk that you're really drawn to, and like that you're really have a passion to follow and really think they're on the right path?
I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a fan of Jeff Bezos, but I can put some respect on the insane growth that Amazon has had, and just how dominant that company is. They've essentially taken over. They're nearly unopposed in the field of online shopping. They can basically undercut anyone in the world, except maybe China. But then they sell a lot of that stuff. Their delivery times are ridiculous. The amount of information that they're able to just generate, the fact that they sort of something that people may not normally think about, but they have the largest cloud computing and storage service available.
Yeah.
They're just so dominant. And you listen to those early interviews with him in 1999, 2000. He's talking like, oh yeah, so Amazon, I'm buying. He was buying up land to build his warehouses and factories. He had this plan to just dominate retail, and he's done it.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
It's absurd. It's absurd. And no one's really ready. No one can sort of stop it. He's completely crashed any sort of, I don't know if I'd call it the mall economy, but malls are not a thing in the United States anymore, really. They have dried up completely. No one goes to them.
Too much of a monopoly over it?
Too much? I mean, any sort of monopoly is not always good, I think. And from looking at what he's doing, so he's, booted all of these companies out of the physical sort of store, out of being physical stores in malls, and now he's started buying up retail again, and he's opening these the smart shopping centers, if you guys know about them, the smart markets.
Yep.
They're these markets that they stock based on the information that they get from people in the area. So they'll stock that store with milk when they think that everyone in the area is going to need milk. It makes, and we'll stock apples this week. These people are out of stuff.
Yeah, it's
that's all going to get tied in with it's going to get tied in with all this like smart fridge technology.
Yeah, it'll just know
more
when
efficiently
you need
stock.
things.
Yeah, the efficiency that they get from doing that, from this data mining, you can't compete with it.
Yeah,
no one can compete.
I've always thought it's interesting that obviously there used to be a lot of physical stores. And then the internet came along and everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's cool, but, keep your physical stores. And then, in the last sort of 5 years, even less, it's kind of like, all right, go online. There's no point in having physical stores. And then, Apple, though, was always like, nah, we're going back to physical stores. They've gone back again, and Amazon has now done as well. It's amazing that they have the capability of just completely changing an industry and then completely changing it back again, almost at will. I wonder if it's, they're obviously more than welcome to change their business models and change them to physical stores again. But the fact that everyone copies sort of shows that they have a bit of that monopoly, especially Amazon.
Yeah. That's sort of the thing. Amazon doesn't move in, they're not reactionary. These other retail stores, they're retail stores. Oh, we sell clothes. Let's open up a clothes store. There's not like a plan to expand your customer base or how can we capture this new market? It's just, we'll sell clothes. Amazon has been designed from the beginning to just dominate. Their whole plan is
absolutely.
Just to take, it's their world domination plan. The fact that they're going back into retail like this, it's definitely not just on a whim. It's they have a plan.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
I'm not sure if it worries me or not.
It's interesting because Tesla, of course, is going the opposite way. Is getting rid of a lot of their physical stores. And again, it'll sort of, we'll have to see if that pans out for the positive for them. But it's interesting that Elon takes the approach of that actually online is the better way to sell cars, especially when cars have always, for many, many years, have always been on showroom floors and testing your cars and taking them for a drive and that sort of thing.
I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but I think dealerships are outdated and annoying. They are annoying. You got to shop around. You got to find a competitive price somewhere else. You got to haggle with the car salesman, and it's just weird. I think,
especially for Tesla, because they keep such a tight focus on the entire process. When you go and test drive a Tesla at the moment, you're not testing the ones that are on the show floor. You're actually testing ones that people own. So as a Tesla owner, you can kind of lease out your car to a local Tesla dealer for people to test drive.
Yeah.
So there's almost no point of the stores.
Do you, I guess, shifting on a bit towards the electric car discussion, do you think Teslas are the future of electric cars, or they're sort of, they're obviously doing very well, but I think they're too early. They were too early and they'll sort of peter out, or?
No, electric cars are the future.
Absolutely.
That's something that's going to happen in the next decade. Because, I mean, if you look at big companies India being one of the biggest, their plan is to have all electric vehicles in their company in the next 20 or so years. So, one of the arguments that I hate to hear all the time against electric vehicles is, you're just using coal to make the electricity to charge your car. It doesn't make a difference. But once you get all these cars once you get all of them on the grid, right? Once your electricity grid is renewable, everything's renewable.
Instantly.
Every sort of forward-thinking country would be moving towards prioritizing getting electric vehicles in the country. I mean, I guess the only limiting factor right now is that they just can't make them fast enough.
Yeah, and it's not just Tesla. I mean, I know that Ford has their plans for going electric and taking their, especially their really popular cars like the F-150. I know they've got plans to make it one electric car in each category by 2022, and most other car manufacturers have similar similar things. And sure, they might be a bit ambitious. Can you produce that many electric cars that quickly? But some of them a bit more realistic. Sort of 2025 goals. I can't exactly remember the exact details for each company, but I guess we are just on that shift, which is good. And I wonder if sort of coronavirus is a bit of the kick we need, especially for driverless. It's just humans driving essential goods like food. It's just so inefficient. We've just shown this, that your borders shut, your truck drivers get sick, everyone's in lockdown and your whole country stops. And I wonder if for countries especially, that's quite a terrifying thing, that they went, oh, how are we going to move food around our country?
Driverless cars are just that's going to be one of the biggest advancements in the world, I reckon. Because, I mean, think about how many people are employed as drivers. You've got bus drivers, truck drivers, taxis. Like, just taking that out of a country, that's what, in Australia, that'd be millions of jobs just gone. It's a bit of an absurd thing to think about. That, I mean, it'll almost be like the self checkout in supermarkets. I guess we still have proper checkouts there, but it'll just disappear. I guess a good thing to come out of it is it'll be a lot safer if no one's driving themselves, or hopefully it would be. Because the biggest thing I've seen so far, the problem with driverless cars is that there are humans driving on the roads with them. And the people are not predictable. People are stupid compared to a computer, that is.
I've had a massive shift in my opinion, and I have a bit of a controversial opinion on it now. I actually think that it could actually, and I think it's just starting to peter now, that electric and autonomous cars might actually be a bit more of a dystopian future than what we expect. I don't think it's going to necessarily be a good thing for the world.
Why is that?
If no one's ready for it, it won't be good.
So you look at, I'm not too sure if you guys heard about it, but there was a bit of uproar. It would have been within the past 3 months, when a person over in, I think, America tried to buy a Tesla, and it came advertised with some certain features. And he bought the car, and Tesla would remove those features because he wasn't the owner of the car. So, if you expand this out...
what kind of features are you talking about? Are you talking about?
So that was the software DRM problem, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I think this came down to it was either the autonomous driving or the ludicrous. So if you kind of think about what we were talking before about how Amazon's kind of got this monopoly, if you see what Tesla's doing at the moment, they're very much focusing down the same rabbit hole.
Yeah.
They're starting to produce products that are going to own the entire process from making, storing, and using electricity. And they're bringing out features which you're now having to pay for on a monthly basis. So it's going to be like a service based business model. So, you go 10 years down the line, 20 years, however long it's going to take for fully autonomous driving. And if it's anything like today, it's probably going to be Tesla owning the majority of vehicles if they keep on the same projection. So you get into your Tesla and you set your destination, and then depending on what service you own, you might have to pay extra for better music or extra for air conditioning, or, if you're traveling over 50 kilometers, you might have to pay extra or added safety features.
So this comes down to some of the ideas of not owning your own car.
Yes.
This comes down to the idea of subscribing like a phone plan, and the better phone plan you pay for is the better car you get. I haven't heard the idea of limiting features in Teslas. I've heard about sort of, the classic one is, I pay the premium, therefore I always have either a Lamborghini, Ferrari, Maserati, these premium brands rocking up. I pay for the general, I have, Fords, mid-range Fords, i30s, I have these kind of things rocking up. Do you think that it will be within each brand, all cars will be spec'd to be beautiful, like top range and bottom range, and they just turn on and off features? Or do you think they will be completely separate cars in each band?
I think, for me, looking at it kind of from a business stance, it would make sense, or for me personally, I think it would make sense to have a fleet of high-spec cars
and then
being able to turn on and off features.
I think that completely depends on how much it costs to make them. Because, something like four-wheel drive isn't going to be an on or off feature if you're buying a car.
No, so obviously within reasons, I'd be more thinking, you'd have one Model S model. Like, you just have one model of that car.
Yeah.
And you'd be able to turn on and off. Yeah.
Yeah, like you say, even possibly down to things like softer suspension, turning that on and off. Not necessarily that's,
I think that'd be a pretty...
Well, that actively makes it worse for people, but I'm trying to think if there's an example in phones that pay for a worse plan.
I remember reading... I know iPhones used to do this. It would be that every iPhone had the same memory unit within the phone, but the lower spec ones, they would just sort of, disable half of the storage in the phone, and you'd have to pay that extra money to get it unlocked, rather than them putting in a larger, storage thing.
I guess
it's kind of like that.
Yeah, I am of the belief that we won't own our own cars in the future. I think, there's a lot of car heads and they love their cars and all that, but when it's driverless, that sort of connection with your car sort of stops there, and I guess when you're, for example, out drinking, you don't use your own car, obviously, because you're drinking, so you take an Uber, and that's sort of the first step of using someone else's car. And as you go down that line, you go, I can have this $50,000 car sitting in my garage to use occasionally, or I can use it for the exact same amount of time per year, and it costs me $2,000 in a subscription.
So kind of like Bird. Like those hire scooters.
Yeah.
Just like that's the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just like a hire a Tesla system. I don't necessarily think, personal cars will be gone. I don't think that's a possibility, but something like a Bird-like service for cars.
Uber's already on its way there.
Uber's almost already on its way there. I guess you can still hire and borrow cars, like rent a car at the airport type thing. But if that became an affordable thing to do, like a taxi-like option, See, that's a business idea, boys. Maybe we should do that.
I'm not sure we're the first to have thought of it, but hey, $1 million ideas coming out of this podcast every day.
Affordability is the problem there. But
it is a scary thought, though, that this is, companies are starting to get down to your foundational needs, daily needs, becoming, you're not owning any of the stuff you need to get on with your day and get to work. And if they, had some bad intentions, they could very easily,
union strike. Your car just doesn't rock up for that day.
Yep.
Anyway, good to talk to you boys. I reckon we should probably wrap it up there. But good to hear about old Elon's baby and what he's been up to lately, and Neuralink and everything. It's an interesting world, and it's only getting more and more interesting every day, it seems like. But
that's it.
No, it'll be good. We'll pop some links down in the description if you're interested in anything we've talked about today, guys. And we'll catch you next week on the next Tech Type podcast.
Gotcha.
All right, see ya.
Talk to you then, boys. See you later.